Hey everyone, Frank with IceAge Performance. Today we are installing our Tip Fix Kit on a model year 24 Matryx snowmobile. So we're going to walk you through how to install it, the tools you'll need, what comes in the kit, and all the steps necessary to put our Tip Fix Kit on this 24 Matryx. This is exactly how the skid was pulled from the sled. Factory setup, tipless, Hifax extending beyond the rail. So this is 100% stock form from a 24 Matryx 9R, and we'll walk you through how to remove the factory setup and install our Tip Fix Kit. So tools you'll need for installing this, we have 3/8 ratchet, T27, 13 and 10 millimeter wrenches, also a 13 and 10 socket, a measuring device for cutting the Hifax. In the kit itself, these are the parts you'll receive: spacer sleeves, pair of tips, washers, step washer, and of course, Loctite for reinstalling the factory bolts. So this is everything that you'll need to install our Tip Fix Kit for the model year 24 Matryx snowmobiles. So the first step for installing our Tip Fix Kit is obviously pulling the skid from your Matryx. You can see a video for that in our description below. We have a full video on how to remove your skid on your Matryx snowmobile. So you will need to take this out of your sled. First step we're going to do is remove the limiter strap. Start with the upper bolt here. Obviously keeping track of the hardware so you don't lose anything. These washers like to stick to the limiter strap. Take those, put them back on the bolt, and set it aside. Next up, we're going to remove the factory anti-stab from the sled. The stock is a 13 millimeter, so we'll take that out. There's washers on the inside and washers on the outside, so a couple may fall on the floor, but we'll just take those out and set those aside. We'll only be reusing the bolt for the Tip Fix Kit. And again, washers on the inside. These may fall on the floor, so just keep track of it and then set them aside. Then we're going to remove the Hifax screw using a T27. So now that everything is removed from the factory skid, next will be removing the Hifax and cutting it. In the instructions, we have a 3 1/8 of an inch measurement that will be cutting from the center of this Hifax hole forward. So you can do this a few different ways, whatever you have available, whether it's a chop saw on a workbench, you can remove the Hifax completely. You can pull the Hifax off the rail, just about 6 inches, and then cut it with a angle grinder, with a cutting wheel, or a Sawzall, or just a handsaw, whatever you have available. We're going to remove it from the sled today. It's just easier, in our opinion, to do it like that. And we're going to cut it and show you how to measure it, so that way there's no mistakes. We do hedge on the side of cutting it a little bit longer. That way if you need to trim it back or file it down, you can do so. Better to have that option than cutting it too short and having to purchase new Hifax. So let's get this pulled from the skid. We'll measure it, cut it, and then get it reinstalled. Now we're going to make our measurement using the center of the Hifax hole to measure from. And we're going to put the mark up here. So take a ruler, or if you have a caliper available, that's a little more accurate. But otherwise, we'll make our measurement and mark it, and then cut it on the chop saw. We just have a silver Sharpie here, makes things easy to see. Aligning it with the center of that Hifax hole, we're a little short now. Scooch it down a bit more. Again, hedging on the side of caution, where if you cut it a little bit longer, you can always trim it back. Going too short, you may have to get new Hifax, so just be a little careful there. And we're going to mark it roughly about there. So 3 1/8 of an inch. We're going to bring it over to the chop saw and then do it same thing to the other one. So now you can see here our Hifax, instead of having that angle cut, is just a straight 90. this will butt up to our tips that we include. So this is ready to go back on the rail, and we'll get things put together, do the same cut on the other Hifax as well. Next, putting the Hifax back on the rail here. For now, you can get it close, and then we'll align it with the Hifax hole up front once we're ready to reinstall things. And that's it for putting the Hifax on. Sliding it from the rear of the rail forward is just a little bit easier than dealing with the bend of the rail the whole way as you're putting it on. So we'll get these Hifax aligned with the holes, and then we'll reinstall our screws and begin installing the kit that you just received. So we put the Hifax on, lined it up with the Hifax hole. What we're gonna do is test fit the tip and make sure that our cut is good. And you can do that just by putting it on and looking through, making sure that it's aligned correctly with the hole centered there. And this is the fitment we're looking for with that 3 1/8 inch cut. Very tight. There's no sort of gap there. So this is perfect fit, exactly what we're looking for. Again, err on the side of caution. If you cut your Hifax just a little bit longer, you can always trim it back. So be careful not to cut it too short and then be in a different situation. So this is exactly what we're looking for. Next is the Hifax screws. Putting these back in. So to give yourself a little more room up front to work with when reinstalling the anti-stab, we're gonna loosen the lower front track shock with a 13 millimeter, and then this will allow the rails to spread apart to put the anti-stab wheel kit up front without fighting too much. So just loosening that, and then the rails will pull apart, and then pulling the bolt out, putting a little dab of the Loctite on there, and reinstalling it once everything is put into place. So that gives us enough room to get the anti-stab kit in here. We have another tip for installing the washer that's in the kit. This is the additional washer that's included. This goes on the inside of the rail. It's a little tricky to get things all aligned at the same time, put the anti-stab in, bolts together. So what we do is we take a little bit of grease for your skid or just anything grease related, and we put it on the rail, just kind of around that hole. And what that does is it holds this washer right in place so you can put the bolt through and not be fumbling with the washer so much. Tip will go on first and then the washer. We're just doing this for demonstration purposes. But that grease helps a bunch with reinstalling. Next is going to be installing the rail tips. These are directional, so you're going to want to make sure that the dimples we have put on these rail caps are facing each other. That way the anti-stab can nest into these tips correctly. So dimples facing each other. Again, important that these are installed correctly because they are directional. So tips are on. Next up are the washers. We'll be able to stick those right in there thanks to the grease we installed. They'll hang tight and won't move or fall on the ground. Now we are ready to put this assembly back on using the sleeves provided in your kit. And what I like to do is put one side in and then the other. And with the tension of the rails, it holds itself in place here, and we'll be able to install the factory bolts with the step spacer washers there, applying a little bit of Loctite to each. Again on this one, using a 13 millimeter. We'll get that started. Same with the other side. So loosely get those started, make sure everything's kind of squared up and looking well. Make sure the sleeves and kit is nested into the rail tips there. So this is how it should look, and we'll get it snugged up, get the limiter strap reinstalled, and we're pretty much good to go. Next is the limiter strap. Using the factory hardware that we removed previously. And it does help to have either the skid tied down on the workbench or a buddy to hold it. That way you can compress the shock and get everything into position here. Then using a 10mm wrench and socket, get that snugged up. So this is the Tip Fix Kit fully installed. We want to thank you everyone for watching. This is how it will look in the end here. We kind of touched on it earlier, doing a little bit of a close-up, but Hifax nested perfectly on the rail tip that we included in the kit. We're using the factory bolt with the step washer that we include, washer on the inside of the rail, spacer sleeve, and the same can be said for the other side here. So this is the fully installed kit, no more tipless design, and ensures peace of mind that your Hifax won't get hooked on any of the track clips, and this will create a nice smooth transition, and you can reuse your factory anti-stab. So again, if you have any questions, more than happy to help. Our number is 406-763-0365, but this is the kit and everything that you need to put tips on your 24 Matryx snowmobile.